This is the story of how I manifested my house. I already posted this on Instagram and TikTok, and I said I was going to do a more in-depth story because there's a lot of synchronicity behind how it happened. And I also think that I have a very unique view of manifestation. The way that I view manifestation now is very different than how I used to. I do have a video on my channel about how I went from toxic positivity, new age spirituality to a more grounded view of spirituality, so go watch that if you haven't. But the way that I view manifestation is more through the lens of how To Be Magnetic, Lacy her formula for manifestation. So through my story of how I manifested my house, it's more through that lens, but it also has these other energetic signatures that I've never heard people talk about. I really want to help you on your journey of manifestation, especially if you're getting to a point where you're like, is this stuff even real? I'm here to show you that it is. You're still on your journey to finding what is exactly right for you. Okay, so how I manifested my house. I have to preface with, I am in a rent house. I didn't necessarily buy a house, but I do think that's kind of what started this off on the right foot, is that it felt like a very realistic step up. It didn't feel completely out of reach. I wasn't trying to manifest $1 million home or something, but it was like a step above where I was at the time. And it was a little bit out of reach, but it was still believable for me. So at the time I was living in, this is in 2021, I was living in a 500 square foot apartment with my boyfriend. So us two and 2 dogs, big dogs. We have a golden retriever and a lab. We needed more space badly, and I wanted the dogs to have a yard, and I needed a place to do my readings. And really just overall well-being. My boyfriend's like 6'3", and I just feel that he was feeling very trapped and enclosed. So we needed a new place. I really did have a manifestation mindset going in. Like, I kind of looked at it in an exciting way at first. Like, I was like, okay, this can actually put my manifestation skills to the test and use Lacy's process. So let me kind of explain Lacy's process. And you can go look at tobemagnetic.com. She also has a bunch of courses, things like that. Basically, there's an unblocking component where you reprogram your subconscious, which is from childhood and shadow work and that kind of stuff. And then she also has a part of manifestation called expanders, where you need to have people in your life or people that you find through social media that expand what you think is possible for yourself. So you look at someone and you see that they have something that you want, and because they have it and they have a similar background to you, or they're the same as you in some way, it makes you believe that it's possible for you. Because if they're a human and they're able to do it, then I'm a human and I'm also able to do it. So there's the unblocking piece, there's expanders, and then there's tests, which means that sometimes the universe is going to give you a test to see if you've actually grown the way that you say you've grown. Basically an opportunity to show your growth. It may be an opportunity where you need to say no. It's basically the universe seeing if you're going to settle for less. Okay, so those are the main 3 parts. It goes deeper, but I'm just explaining that's the mindset I'm going in with. We started looking in April, the lease ends in June, but I knew, and I think this is part of what helped me not have too much pressure on myself, is that I knew that after June I could still go month to month. No, I didn't necessarily want to do that, but I had like a backup plan. And this is something that I find helps me in my manifestation process, is that always knowing that there's another option, because it doesn't put a bunch of pressure on your manifestation. Okay, I made a list. This was my list for the next place that I wanted to move into. Again, it was realistic, but it was just a step above what I thought was possible for me. I said preferably rental house or a cozy apartment. I didn't want to be in a type of apartment that like felt super harsh and like metal, and y'all know what kind of apartments I'm talking about. I wanted like a cozy feeling apartment or a rental house, preferably a rental house. I wanted a yard for the dogs to run around in. I wanted a second bedroom or an office to do my readings. Even then I was like, well, if we just get a second bedroom, at least I could do the readings in there. I wasn't really putting much there. I just knew we needed another room in general. And then I wanted a lot of trees around. And that kind of goes with the cozy feeling, because for me, if there's a lot of trees around, it feels cozy. So I wanted a lot of trees, and I wanted a lot of light to come into the space. So at first I started looking on all the online stuff, and I find a house pretty quickly, and I loved it. It had everything that I wanted, and it was in budget. And I forgot to mention that was also on the list, like the budget that I had. So when I find this first house, I swear I was literally the first person to click on it because I was like refreshing realtor.com over and over. And I call the person, they want me to come look at it. And he's basically like, you have to apply for it now or it's gonna go before you even can look at it. And I'm like, okay, I'll apply. So me and my boyfriend apply. Again, I'm like really wanting this house. It was like had everything that I wanted. I should have known that the universe was gonna test me a little bit. Like I wasn't gonna get it just straight away. But he calls me and he's like, you got denied because there's like this $100 charge. You have a collection. I didn't know I had a collection on my credit. Never seen it before. Didn't know. But I guess it was a collection from my past apartment that I never knew. It was just a charge that I guess I never paid. Long story short, I moved from Little Rock to Dallas very quickly. And I'm sure they weren't able to give me that bill. It probably went to like the wrong address or something. So I didn't know that ever went to collections. And he tells me that we're basically denied because of that. That was pretty devastating. Then I go down the rabbit hole trying to figure out how to get this off my credit. Okay. And looking back, I'm like, I don't know if I did the right thing on this, but it's what past Aubrey thought was right at the time. Tried to dispute it on my own and it didn't work. So I knew I had to send letters because people say that was the best way to do it. I hired these people to do it for me. They said that it wouldn't take as long as it ended up taking, which y'all will find out when I explain. But basically I'm like, great, it's going to be taken off my credit and it'll be fine. In the meantime, I'm still looking at places and I tell myself I'm still going to apply because people are different. And obviously I have my boyfriend on there too. So they have to look at his stuff too. So maybe we'll like balance each other out. I don't know. Looking back, I probably shouldn't have kept applying, but I think this was good for me though, because I think this is part of manifestation that people don't talk about. You kind of have to keep going with the momentum. You have to keep going with the action. That's the thing. I was upset when that house fell through. I let myself be upset because I'm really big on letting yourself feel your emotions, okay? But at the same time, I didn't let that disappointment drive me. What I let drive me was my knowing and my deep belief that something else would come through. There's always something else. There was always another opportunity. I remember saying to myself after that first house fell through, it's this or something better. It's something similar to this house or something better. And when those doubts came up, because obviously when the credit thing happened, that was a knock at my self-worth. Like it made me feel dirty. It made me feel wrong, okay? I had to work through those blocks. I won't go into detail about like how to do that, but basically I just understood where it came from. Why was it triggering me so badly? Because those are the things that were blocking me from my manifestation. And I know that in a way it's the universe mirroring to me, okay, this is something to remove or let go of so that the manifestation can flow in. It's almost like removing a rock from a river. So that company is sending letters to get the collections off my credit. Again, I could have paid it, but I had read all this stuff that said it stays on there for 7 years. So I was like, I might, and y'all, I don't know. I was just doing what I thought was right at the time. So I'm still looking at houses. I think I applied to maybe 1 or 2 during that time while the stuff's getting off my credit. There's 3 credit unions. So it got off 2 of them, but it was only left on 1 of them. Okay. And if y'all know how it works, when people run a credit check, they only go through 1 of the bureaus most of the time. So I'm just sitting there just praying, hoping that when they run the credit, it's going to go on the one that doesn't show the collection. So we get to like July or August, and another one fell through. There was this one apartment, and that's where I kind of started to settle. It was an apartment that still had a yard. So it was kind of like townhouse type. I guess it was a townhouse because I had it upstairs. This guy was like willing to wait on the credit to be off because I tried to explain to him it's only on 1 of the credit bureaus. Just wait, it will be off any day now. And because y'all, this company that I use, this guy was just being really sketchy with me. He wasn't being straight up with me. The house ended up falling through, the townhouse, because the owner was like, we can't wait any longer. That was a big hit as well. That's when I really started losing hope, okay? Because we ended up having to go to month, and we just needed more space so badly. Yes, going month to month wasn't bad, and we were able to pay for it, and it wasn't ideal, and I knew that we were okay. And again, I think the energetics of that helped me to have that to fall back on. But it still made things feel like it was closing in a bit and I started to lose hope a little bit. And this is where I have to run home that like, I was not perfect, okay? But I always had this belief that like, surely it's gonna work. And after this, I almost settled big time. There was this one house where I don't even think they were gonna run the credit, but it was a little sketch. Like the landlord in that situation seemed kind of sketch. And my boyfriend was the one that had to step in and be like, no, Aubrey, we're not gonna live there. But I was getting so in a place where I was like, we just gotta get out of this tiny apartment. Like I'm willing to just get wherever. And I also think us manifesting together, no, my boyfriend wasn't necessarily looking at it like in manifestation terms like I was, but his energy was helping me. Us both focusing on it definitely helped in a way. And I needed him to do that. I needed him to make me not settle, because that was him passing a test that I wasn't going to pass. So this is when we kind of changed the way that we're looking for houses. We kind of realized, because we found that house through a sign in the yard. And again, it was kind of sketch, but we were like, okay, maybe it will be easier if you're talking to someone instead of doing all these online type applications. So we started driving around neighborhoods that we really liked. I think it helped us manifestation wise, actually getting out into the possible neighborhoods, because it goes with that typical manifestation thing that you hear, like that act as if, putting yourself there. But it also took us off of the online and got us in there. Like it made it different. It made us feel more like we were a part of it, like we were more action oriented. It didn't feel as like detached, I guess, or as like separated from the landlord. And there was this one neighborhood I remember driving my boyfriend to, because I already knew of it because I lived here before him. Let me just explain why I love this neighborhood. It has fairy energy. It feels like whimsical. The houses are like older. They're not modern. They're just homey and cozy. There's so many trees. Still the city, because like the address is the big city, but it's on the outskirts and it feels more like secluded. And I took my boyfriend there. We're like, let's just look at some signs. And he loved it too. And I was like, oh, this is a good sign. Like, what if we end up here? I think that helped us just getting excited about the possibility of living there. But again, we still had that thing where if we don't end up living here, that's okay. But that would be ideal to live here. But if it doesn't, it's okay, because I know that something else will come. We actually ended up touring 2 houses here, and those were both signs that we found in the yard. And even though those 2 fell through, I think it helped us to get the vibe of the houses, to get the vibe of the neighborhood. But I'm not gonna lie, after those 2 houses in the neighborhood I wanted fell through, I'm like, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. I did feel defeated, but looking back, I think that expanded me a bit. Going back to the expanders, it made me see what was possible. Okay, I could find a landlord. We have more of a human to human interaction, that maybe they would choose us over someone else because they liked us. That expanded me a bit to see what was possible, to believe that it was possible for me. And not even a week or 2 later, we see a sign in a yard on a corner lot, and my boyfriend calls the number. And this girl answers. She asks some questions like what he does for work, what I do for work. Basically doing the application over the phone. It was almost like this vibe where she felt interested in us. It was like when she got the call from us, it was like, oh, I like these people. I swear we must have been the first people to call, which in itself is kind of a God thing. I felt like she wasn't skeptical of us. Everybody else felt very like skeptical. Everyone has to go through the process, being very nosy and choosy. She was very just like straightforward. I had to switch to my other camera because iPhone storage, don't even get me started. Hopefully my camera does fine. So after we tour the house, we fill out a application. The application's totally old school, no online stuff. You even had to give a check to do it. You couldn't do it online. And a couple days later, she texted us and said, congrats, you have the house. Now, the crazy thing about this, and this is whenever, and again, I still had that one thing on one of the credit bureaus. I was still working to get it off, and I was hoping that any day that it would, because in the back of my head, I'm like, oh no, she's gonna run the credit and she's gonna not want us anymore. And when we met her to sign the lease, she says, I didn't even run anything on y'all. I just like y'all and I think y'all be a great fit. Literally when she said that, it was like the Twilight Zone. It was like, da na 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 na. Like I was like, oh my God. And I know some people might like chalk that up to, oh, that's just a coincidence. I don't believe that was a coincidence. I truly believe the universe was conspiring in our favor, trying to help us because of how trusting I'd been. And keep in mind, this is the end of August, the beginning of September when it finally came through. Like we didn't move in till September 2021. So I had been doing the month to month for 2 months. It was everything. It was the cozy house in this neighborhood. It had a big yard for the dogs, even bigger than I was even imagining. And it had a second bedroom so that my parents or friends, whoever, could come stay. And it had an office for me, and it has an office for him. His office is more like a laundry room, utility room, but he uses it as an office. It's a pretty like big room. So the rooms like exceeded my expectations on what was possible. And this neighborhood is full of trees and so much light comes into this house. I don't even have to turn the lights on during the day. Now, this is where if Lacy Phillips was in front of me, she might tell me that I was settling on 2 things. I was so ready to get out of that apartment. I was like, this is great. The 2 things that were kind of off was it was $200 above the budget, which between me and my boyfriend, that's only $100 more for me, $100 more for him. In my head, that was doable, okay? And it didn't have a direct door to the yard. So the dogs kind of have to walk around the house to the gate, which isn't ideal. But again, it wasn't something that was such a big deal to me to be like, I don't want the house. In truth, like I really do believe there probably was a house out there that was exactly on the budget that had a door to the backyard. But I think that was where my line with trust, because I'm not a fully trusting of the universe yet, of God yet. Everyone, especially in our humanness, is still gonna have these little blocks that we have up because of our triggers, because of our past. And I think that was my line. I was like, you know, I'm not willing to wait it out longer to see, universe. Like I can take this. And that's the thing, I wasn't settling big time. It was just this little thing. So, and I do not regret that at all. If anything, because I think if Lacy was in front of me, she wouldn't think it was settling. I don't know, because I'm so grateful for it now. Nothing went wrong because of me settling on those 2 things. And I say every day how grateful I am for this house. Now, I'm going to go over the main reasons why I think that this worked, why this manifestation process worked. I've kind of already gone through them, but I want to put them in a bullet point list. So number 1, I think that my goal was realistic. When I say that, and because a lot of people in the law of attraction community want to be like, oh, set your dreams really, really high. The thing is, your subconscious has to believe that it's possible. If I was trying to manifest $1 million house, I would not believe that was possible for me. So I only did a step up. So that's number 1. Number 2, I think it helped that me and my boyfriend were both doing this together. We both had our focus together. There's something about that with manifestation that helps us. Number 3, I had a deep, deep desire, and so did he. It was bad. Like I wanted it badly. And this is the thing, sometimes we think we want certain things badly, but low-key we're actually afraid of them. There was nothing about me wanting a rental house that I was afraid of. I wanted it bad, and I was willing to do whatever I needed to do to get it. Number 4 is I had a deep, deep belief that there's always another opportunity. I do believe this is like my secret sauce. If a house fell through, if there was a doubt, if there was a fear, I would let myself feel that, but I wouldn't let it control me. I wouldn't let that be my driving force, was the doubt or the fear or the disappointment. I always knew in the back of my head that there's always something better, either this or something better, something similar or something better. That brings me to number 5, is that when a trigger did come up, I would process it. I would understand where it comes from. I would do the inner child, the shadow work behind it. Number 6 was having that backup plan. When it comes to the month to month at my apartment, at that tiny apartment, I was able to go month to month. I do think having that backup plan helps you energetically. Now, the backup plan can't be out of fear. It's out of this feeling of, well, it's okay if we have to do that. It's like this neutral feeling. It's neutral, that's what it is. Because it's not something that makes you feel terrible, but it's just like neutral. having that kind of backup plan that won't completely devastate you, but it's not ideal, that helps our subconscious. It makes us feel safe. Number 7 was driving around the neighborhood. I guess you can count that as visualizing, but like, I wasn't sitting in my room visualizing, you know? I don't even think I ever did that once. I was really getting out there in the environment and acting as if. I like that better. Again, that kind of goes with us not being online as much and actually being out there in the environment that we wanted to be in. We were taking control. It was almost like I was getting my body ready in a way. Number 8, and I kind of already touched on this, and I think, again, this is my secret sauce. I don't know if this works for everybody, but I do believe that in my personal patterning when it comes to manifestation, and you've got to figure out what your personal patterning is. For me, every time a manifestation comes in, it's always this feeling of, I would love for that thing to happen, but I'm not attached to it. It doesn't have to happen. I would love for it to happen, but I'm okay if it doesn't. So it kind of goes back to like being grateful for what you have, but it's not that. Like, you don't have to completely love where you're at. It's more just being like, again, it's that neutrality. Like, I'm kind of just neutral towards how it is right now. I would love for it to be this way, but if not, I'll be good. Finding like that contentment. Number 8 is, and I've kind of already talked about this, but it was more about the action. It was more about the action instead of being passive. This did not require me like having to say affirmations to myself. I didn't have to do hypnosis every night. I didn't have to sit in a meditation and visualize constantly. I was actually getting out there and feeling into the energetics of everything. And the action takes place too, because I kept looking even in the face of doubt and fear. I kept going because I trusted the divine. I trusted the universe as much as I was able. And that brings me to number 9, that it's as much as I was able. I wasn't perfect. I want y'all to understand this. Like, a lot of people, when they talk about manifestation, and this is what I used to do when I was like 19, I used to think that I can't have one negative thought. That's not true, because the universe does not manifest in that way. I almost settled big time. Like, there was a moment where I was like, F it. Like, I'll get an apartment that's just a cookie cutter apartment with a 2nd bedroom. Like, I just need a place to do my readings, and we can have an apartment complex that has a dog park. Like, it's fine. I was really about to settle like that. And imagine if I settled like that, I wouldn't have the house that I wanted. I want to bring that up because it's just about releasing as much resistance as you're able. Again, like that stream, right? You're just removing as many rocks as you're able to. You don't have to remove all the rocks. The manifestation doesn't come in right when it's like perfect. You're never going to be perfect. I guess this goes with number 10, and I kind of already said it. It's letting go. I really tried my hardest to let go and let the divine, and they did, and it came through perfectly. And this is something to remember. I did everything possible that made me feel in my heart like, okay, Ob, you're doing everything that you need to do in order to find this house. Like, I really felt that in my heart. So as long as I felt like the actions I were taking were spot on, after that, I knew that the rest was God. The rest was the universe, the rest was the divine, whatever word you want to have for it. The rest was them, and I had to let go on that. I really hope this helped you on your manifestation journey. And put in the comments what you think your personal patterning is with manifestation and what energy you usually have to be in to manifest. Thanks for watching. I'm so glad that I have 100 subscribers now. I know that sounds really small, but it's very important to me, and I'm so grateful that you're here. Let me know what other videos that you want, and please put what manifestations that you have brought into your experience. I'd love to know.